Is hashtag own voices merely a virtue signaling tool meant to endear the middleman to customers? Thanks for tuning in to Underground Radio. I am Ravishan Wijemanne. Not exactly underground, not exactly radio, not exactly Ravishan. We are talking about hashtag own voices, the new gatekeeper in the fantasy fiction industry. A localized mutation for now, but threatening to become cultural cancer. Like all bad ideas, this one has the best intentions. Okay, I'm going to read out a definition of hashtag own voices from the website of a publisher called Blue Crow. I am not picking on them. Like I said, they are well intentioned. This is just so that we have a working definition of the bigger movement. It means that if you are writing a main character who is part of a marginalized group, you are part of that marginalized group. If you're writing a trans asterisk main character, you are a trans asterisk person. If you're writing about an American Indian main character, you are an American Indian. If you're writing about a disabled main character, you are disabled, and so on. So this is what it wants to achieve. It wants to prevent marginalized people's stories from being stolen, misrepresented, ensure marginalized people have fewer hurdles to jump to be published, give them the slice of the pie they deserve, and overall, encourage better stories to be written. On the surface, this is a remedy for gatekeeping, which is commendable. Ideally, no one should tell you what you can or cannot write. Also, in the ideal world, actions will be distinguishable from speech. What can be argued as inducement can be resisted with free will, and laws will penalize undesirable acts without controlling speech. But that's another headache, another debate, maybe another episode. For today, let's see whether hashtag own voices lives up to its aspirations. Marginalized people's stories being stolen and misrepresented. A novel does not implode upon its main character. Its worldview is not circumscribed by the perceptions of its main character. Verisimilitude, the relatable reality you find in a novel, is produced by weaving the main character's inner world with the inner worlds of other characters. All of this is to say that you will have to get inside the heads of all of your characters, not just your main character. The friends, family, parents, enemies, neighbors of your main character, including the characters who are mere plot devices. And once inside their heads, in order to make sense of the world, you will have to rely on the stories of their people, their lore. So unless you are a shape-shifting alien or you situate your book in a monocultural island, you will have to steal the stories of some people at some point. But can stories be stolen? I'm not talking about plagiarism, which is stealing the manner of a story. That can certainly happen. But what is a story? Is a story alone a novel? Othello is the story about a Moorish general in the Venetian army, written by an English poet, based on the hearsay contemporary version. But is Othello just a story about a jealous husband? If that's all you can think of when you read Shakespeare aloud, you have no ears for music. Rodion Raskolnikov was inspired by the story of Pierre-François Lacenaire. So is Crime and Punishment just a piece of foreign news picked up by a Russian journalist? If that's what you think when you hear that one-word sentence, Omsk, you have no soul. After all, how many stories do we have to go around? The jealous husband, the axe murderer, the envious underling, the redeemed prostitute. The settings may change, the permutations may vary, but humanity is limited. We can only do a limited number of things to each other. However, the possibilities of language are limitless. Those are what makes a story a novel. The prose rhythms, the psychologies, the dramatic tension, the manner and method, not merely the matter. So if you are a writer who feels marginalized, let them steal your story. They cannot steal your novel, unless they plagiarize. then sue them to hell. Now we come to the second concern, misrepresentation. The pressure to correctly represent a community is based on the idea that there is a correct identity for that people, a kind of anti-stereotype, like the brown guy who is bad at calculus and is a natural at rap. The problem with the anti-stereotype is the same problem with the stereotype, a failure to render the human being in full complexity. It's a reduction of a character to an automaton who does and says things merely because he or she belongs to a certain culture without motive. It's a failure to explain and to understand that different people behave differently at different times. Well, ultimately, there is no standard issue brown guy. There is no homogeneous brown culture, just the same way there is no homogeneous white culture or Asian culture or African culture. Take Salman Rushdie's Midnight's Children and Arundhati Roy's God of Small Things. Both the Sinais and the Ipes may be returnee immigrants living in a feudal time capsule in India. A critical theory power analysis or any meta-analysis will place both of them in the same node of privilege. But is the Rushdie-Roy experience interchangeable? The lives in Kerala are miniaturized by inhibitions and smothered by humidity. It's a study of mob cruelty and a mildewy culture. Meanwhile, the multitudes of that midnight are tossed and crushed by the convulsions of history. That's a study of national character. Even when you take them one at a time, from Esther to Margaret Kochamma, from General Zulfikar to Adam Sinai, you will see how variegated a people are. We are all mongrels. This brings me to numbers 3 and 4 of our good intentions list. Hurdles to be published and the rightful slice of pie. We live in a time with the lowest hurdle to be published. Anyone with a WordPress account can achieve that. So we must be talking about profitable publishing, publishing house publishing, middleman publishing. True, not many authors get that opportunity. Even a good Samaritan middleman publisher cannot artificially create demand for an author's book. If there already were an organic demand for own voice novels, then they would have been selling on their own. There would have been no need for the publishing industry to add another hurdle, so to speak. If that were the case, is hashtag own voices merely a virtue signaling tool meant to endear the middleman to customers? So how do we solve this problem? How do we all publish and eat pie? The bottom line is, an artist cannot control nor demand who and how many people will appreciate that author's art. It's been that way since the time of James Joyce, who had to borrow a living from his brother. It's been that way when Amadeo Modigliani died a pauper. It's been that way when Nietzsche collapsed into insanity, practically friendless, and mostly self-published. This is the real devil's deal. Greatness in exchange for anonymity. It's hard enough to be noticed by a publisher. So what can the publisher, the middleman, do to help? Simple. Get rid of all hurdles, even the hashtag hurdles. It's nice to milk popular trends, but also take a chance on lasting literature. Bank on talent. That's all for today's episode of Underground Radio. Thanks for tuning in. Give a thumbs up if you enjoyed. Did I miss anything? Any caveats, endorsements, cheers, jeers? Please put them in the comments below. Let's talk. Until then, over and out. See you when I see you.